Hi, you guys. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Visual, where I interview all the people responsible for creating those images and videos you see out in your world every single day. I am your host, advertising and lifestyle photographer, Mark Hansen. And today, my guest is Kirsten Kinkead. And Kirsten is the Director of Photography Operations at Eddie Bauer. And in this episode, we talk about all kinds of cool stuff. We talk about all her travels all over the world, a shoot in La Paz that went crazy, one of her worst judgment calls ever, the benefits of using Scott's cheap flights for your personal travel, and what she thinks about emails from photographers and from agents, and just how she got her job at Eddie Bauer after moving from New Zealand and working at Kathmandu. So stay tuned, guys. You're really going to dig this one, and see you soon. There it went. That took a while. 3 clicks to get it started. Now, what the hell happened? Well, thank you for agreeing to do this. First of all, I'm sure you guys have stuff going on and you're probably busy, but I appreciate you taking the time to do this. That was nice of you.
No worries. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me how you got started. Because, okay, so I did a little bit of research on you, very little, but a little.
Yeah.
I looked on LinkedIn, basically. So it came down to. And I saw that you have a bachelor's in business administration, and you are now the director of photography operations at Eddie Bauer. So how did you go from business administration to director of photography? How did that whole thing play out?
The trajectory of it all. Yeah. So let's see. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. I went to school at the University of Washington. I was very much your kind of American dream trajectory. Of climbing the corporate ladder. I had an interest in starting my own business. And what I learned through it is that I'm great at facilitating that and everything that comes with it, but the ideas weren't necessarily flowing.
Did you know what you wanted to do as far as your own business?
No, that was the issue more than anything, was kind of defining what that was. And I was good through the process of schooling, of partnering with people that were great think tank idea makers. And then we would help bring those products to market. But as far as start to finish, I missed that initial kind of link of it all, if you will, of putting it together. But I think what I've done essentially is taken those skill sets and woven it through everything that I've done. So I came out of school and I went backpacking through Europe. And I just found this amazing lust for travel, interactions with individuals, this kind of global community and perspective of art. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. It was the first time I had a passport. I'd certainly traveled within the United States, but never overseas. And each of those experiences was just so rich. And what you found was, you'd sit in a hostel kitchen and you'd talk to somebody who was from Norway or Thailand and whatnot. And you just got to hear their stories. And it just made you think, like, where can I go next?
Did you plan that whole thing out ahead of time? Or did you just get over there and just end up wherever you decide you wanted to go, just went?
We had a Eurail pass and it was a 3-month. And so you had the flexibility. So we wouldn't book accommodation more than a day in advance. And it wasn't like now that you've got Airbnb where, you can really go in and map it out. It was more some like Rick Steves guides. You had that. And then you also had the Lonely Planet and the Moon Guide. And you would take the time to kind of, through your travels, be influenced by what you heard from other people. And then on the train, you would take the time to research so that when you stepped off, you knew what was there. And it wasn't unusual to either have a recommendation of a hostel or to go and like check out 1 or 2 and then decide where you're going to sleep. Or it was forced just by nature of availability.
Where'd you go?
We went all through. We started in the UK, all through Ireland. Went over to Europe. I think we went to 14 different countries or 15, but I kind of started in London and I finished in Turkey, and going from lunch, breakfasts of sauteed mushrooms and tomatoes and, scrambled eggs in the UK to this amazing, like homemade yogurts with the most incredible honey, and fresh fruits, exotic fruits in Turkey. You kind of had this changed as you went through each country to end with something that was so exotic. You had a Muslim country, call to prayer 5 times. It just was super fulfilling and rich. And I think if I'd gone the other way, it might have been a little more lackluster. But because I went from more what I knew,
right,
to the exotic, that was really phenomenal. And I got gutsier as I went, right? I was more apt to approach people and to go through that process. So
that was 3 weeks?
I was there for almost 4 months, it ended up being.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had the luxury of time in youth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I keep telling my oldest. I was like, listen, when you graduate, if you still, because right now she's getting like a double major in communications and criminal justice and a minor in political science or something. She's all over the place. She doesn't really know what she wants. She thinks maybe speech pathology, but maybe she really wants to be a detective, but she doesn't want to have to be a police officer first to become a detective. She just wants to bust you doing things. So I told her, I was like, listen, if you don't know what you want to do that. Go over to Europe and just hang out. Or if you want to go to California or wherever, go out and do something. You're young. You have plenty of time. I think that's a great idea. I wish I had done it for sure.
It definitely shapes who you are.
I bet it does. Where was your favorite place? Was there one place that was your favorite or just kind of multiple places?
Through Europe, I would, I've gone back to Paris. Barcelona is phenomenal. And that's something that we've shared with my husband and I in our own travels and with our daughter. And I think, Turkey was just extraordinary. But I also have the feeling of I very rarely go back to the same place when I travel, because there's always something else, right? What's that new thing? What comes next? So certainly since then, I've gone way more exotic, from, sleeping on floors for $1 a night, having nothing but a long drop in the backyard, no plumbing, all those different things that challenge you and your sense of hygiene and how much you need.
Yeah.
For sure. And I went a couple of years ago and I trekked into Everest Base Camp, and that was a phenomenal experience.
Really?
So, and one of just testing both mental but physical, being able to overcome a lot of those kind of barriers, whether it be having a hard time breathing or just, the quality of food, of their national dish of dal bhat, being gorgeous and robust in a beautiful copper tray, to coming in like a paper cup and looking like gray water, as you get up to 20,000 or 17,000 feet close to base camp. So,
wow.
Yeah, but I love that. Those are those rich stories that are fun to tell.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've pretty much been just about everywhere, it sounds like.
There's a lot left to go. I think that's what's humbling, is you meet other travelers, you realize how much you haven't seen.
Yeah, and the more I talk to people, the more I know I haven't been anywhere. We were talking to some guy. We were in Turks and Caicos, I think, and we're at the bar talking to some guy, and he came over and just started talking about where he had lived in Europe and all these places he had been. He's traveled this place and this place and this place, kind of like you. And I was just like, all right, I've been nowhere. I've been a couple of places in Europe. I've been down in Mexico, the Caribbean, but I've been nothing compared to like what you've done and what this guy had done. I was like, good God, I got to get out and start doing some more for sure.
But I think through your photography, I'm guessing that you've seen, I think some of the most amazing places I've seen are in the US, and it's through our work that we end up getting dropped into a place like Jackson Hole. And because of the logistics or whatnot, you're seeing people's homes or ranches or areas that you wouldn't otherwise, as a traveler, get access to. And
yeah, I've seen some cool places. Yeah, I was just saying, as far as going, I just haven't.
I get you.
Places, yeah, but yeah. Okay, so you did the whole Europe thing. So you went 4 months over there, and then what happened after that?
I came back to the States, and I got a job with a small business startup, and the economy tanked. And luckily I had been extremely frugal and moved back in with my parents, like a good boomerang child does, and saved up. And I went backpacking through New Zealand and Australia, and I had a one-way ticket, because the thought was, I knew from meeting all these Australians that you could get an around the world ticket out of Australia for, I don't know, like $1,200 or something like that. And you got three continents, like 5 stops. And as long as you kept going in one direction, you could do it. So I thought, there's nothing to come home to in this aside from family and friends, nothing to come
Right.
back to in the States. So I'll do that. And at the time, you for $1 could add one stop on your way to New Zealand. And so I remember, and this is when you still had a travel agent, right? So
Yeah.
she's like, okay, you could go to Tahiti or Fiji, Western Samoa, or the Cook Islands. And my friend and I were like, oh, we are not going to Tahiti and Fiji. People only go there when they're married, right? And now I'm thinking, why for $1 did I not go to these amazing places? But we went to the Cook Islands, which was awesome. And our roommates were part of the Canadian ski team that were headed back from New Zealand from
Oh,
training
wow.
during our summer
Yeah.
and their winter. And I backpacked through Australia, and I reconnected with a young gentleman, a young Australian that I'd met in a hostel in Paris. And I said, hey, can we put a tent in your front yard? And he was like, yes, absolutely, come. And 5 days later, I called home and I was like, so I'm not coming back. Which, now as a
So you're
parent,
throwing up a tent in the front yard. You're just like, I'm good. I'm never leaving.
yeah,
I'm
I'm going to live here. This guy's pretty cool. I think I'm going to make a go of it. So I finished my travels with my friend. She flew back and we moved in together, and he went on to get his master's of education. So then we navigated what it was to work as an immigrant in another country. And obviously I didn't have a lot of work experience, and that was really hard. And plus I spoke English, and I was a threat, to taking jobs from other Australians.
Right.
So I worked for Kathmandu, which is a vertical outdoor retailer, similar to Eddie Bauer, where I work now.
Yeah.
And I worked on the shop floor for years. And actually that was the best foundation for my career, in the sense that, you have customer relations, you learn all about the product. I know all about the technology. So I did my time there, met a ton of people, and then had the opportunity to go and do a 3-month placement in New Zealand at their head office where they were based. And then I was there for another 5 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So did the Australian that you met in Paris that you ended up putting the tent in his front yard, is that your husband now?
It is. His bike is on the wall behind me.
Okay. So
He is a keeper.
he went with you to New Zealand?
What's that? He moved with me to New Zealand. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that worked out.
It worked out really, really well. So, so we had been really fortunate. I was able to immigrate to New Zealand as a skilled worker, and hold a lifetime permanent residency visa there. So,
Wow.
they've done such a great job with eradicating COVID.
I was
So
going to say, you might want to go
there's
back
been
there.
moments where we've been like, is it time to go back? But the idea of spending 2 weeks in a hotel with my children is a little distressing.
You have to get adjoining rooms or a huge suite.
Exactly. So yeah, and then we ended up back in the U.S. We had our first child there, and I had a year's maternity leave, and the company has to keep your position open.
Oh, wow.
And so we got an around the world ticket, and we backpacked with her around the world, and Seattle was our second to last stop.
So how old was she when you were backpacking around the world?
It was about 4 months,
Okay.
4 to 9 months.
Damn. You're brave
It's easy.
too.
They don't move then.
That is true. That is the best
Yeah.
time to travel with kids, is right after they're firstborn. I do remember that.
And we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So, and now I know a lot better. My second child's like, I haven't even been to San Francisco. What are you doing to me? You took her around the world.
Yeah, I think it's weird how it happens with, I tell my friends this story, is when I was growing up, I graduated from high school and I decided, well, some friends of mine, we were going to go to the beach to celebrate graduating high school. My mom goes, who's going with you? Whose parents are going with you to the beach? And so I lied and said, oh, my friend Lenny's dad is taking us down there. He's going to be down there. My brother was a junior in high school. He told my mom, hey, we're going to the mountains to go skiing for the weekend. One of our friends has a house. It's going to be a bunch of guys and girls, and we're going to go up there and just hang out and ski for the weekend. She goes, all right, have fun. So there was no, is there going to be a parent there? None of that stuff. Right. It's just like, go on, get out. So I think and you do, like you said, you do stuff with the kids differently depending on which one they are and what you know at the time and all that kind of stuff. But
for sure,
they'll get over it. They'll figure it out. They'll get their experience at some point between the two of them. Because I think
that's right.
mine used to say the same thing. Like one of them would always say, well, she got to do this or she did that, just like you're talking about. Yeah. So if she was born in New Zealand, is she New Zealand and US citizen?
She is. So she would qualify for a New Zealand passport, but because her father is Australian, she has an Australian citizenship based on descent
Okay.
from a parent. So both of them hold dual passports. And
Wow.
it used to be that you had to give up one, which for a long time was the reason why my husband didn't go through and get his citizenship after he had his green card, after we'd lived here quite a while. But the only rule is that he's not allowed to take up arms against the U.S. as an Australian, which, based on proximity, I don't really see that being an issue.
Yeah,
And
I don't
by
think that's
nature,
gonna
they're pretty,
no.
they're more into a good party than they are into a good fight.
I don't remember the last time you heard about Australia really going at the U.S. about anything, or the U.S. going at Australia. So
No.
it's probably a safe bet.
Yeah.
On that one. Oh my God, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah, so it gives them some flexibility in the future, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you came back. What after? How long were you traveled? You did the backpacking thing for how long?
Yeah. With her,
Yeah.
we were gone at least 4.5 months. We were here for Thanksgiving, so or for I remember that Christmas holiday. So it was about 4 months that we did it with her.
So at that point, when you came back here, is that when you decided you were going to stay here, or were you still planning on going back to New Zealand?
Well, we'd sold everything. So they had a website called Trade Me, which is not dissimilar now to like Craigslist or any of those. And so we liquidated our household, and it was like a college dorm room household experience, right? You piece together the most ugly furniture you could find. You put a blanket over a hole in a couch. I mean, we were living a pretty amazing dual income lifestyle in New Zealand, where like you were like, let's go to the movies, and 5 minutes later you could go, as opposed to now where you've got to plan it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I understand that.
So we sold everything. We had a guest bed that had a horrible spring on it, so I'd put an MDF board on it to stabilize the mattress. Somebody paid $5 for it. Right. You just have and I sold a half-used box of toiletries. I had Calvin Klein Escape and it was the most random stuff. Somebody paid $8 for it. So I don't know if it was that kind of trolling the internet for a deal and people were into that, or you just in a country where at the time the population was closer to 3 million. I used to come back from the States with a duffel bag full of like toothbrushes, jeans, running shoes, because all that stuff was so expensive there. So I think my bargain shopping was great for them. So we sold almost everything except for my husband's collection of wine books. It kept going down in price to about 50 cents, and then somebody still didn't want it. It's still to this day, he thinks like, how did somebody not want my prized wine books? I mean, they couldn't even give them away. So we had liquidated, but knew we could go back and start again, right? And we'd get a nicer bed and a better armchair and all that. So we were in Seattle. I was at the mall and talking to the woman in the Eddie Bauer store, and I said, "Where's your headquarters?" And she said, "Oh, Seattle. It's across the street." And I, having grown up here and worn the canvas barn coat with through the flannel was cool, or flannel was cool and grunge, and I had taken it to a whole new level of kind of dowdiness, if you will. But I had some key Eddie Bauer pieces, including a backpack. So I had no idea it was a Seattle-based company, and that Eddie Bauer was a man, and that he'd had his first store in Seattle. So this whole learning trajectory. So I walked across the street, and in New Zealand, I had gone in for a project, and then the woman who had been the producer fell out of that position, and I was, as she was walking out the door saying, I'm no longer in this position, I was like, I'll take her job. Because for 5 years, I went around the world. We cast our store employees. We took a photographer and an art director. There were 9 of us. We traveled and shot editorially. The talent carried all of their clothing and product for the shoot on their back. They did their own hair and makeup. Wow. And we just, if all the duffels were on the platform of the train station in Japan, we shot it. There was very little zhuzhing and curating of moments. We would go out for for lunch for noodles, and we would shoot that. And so that was kind of what those shoots were. And so this was this amazing, right? Because how would you even know this job exists?
Oh yeah.
You don't at university. Nobody
Right.
says
Yeah.
you
Nobody's
could
gonna
get
tell
paid
you.
to travel. And so I walked into the Eddie Bauer headquarters and I put one of my catalogs down that I'd done for Kathmandu with a letter that said, I'm local. I would love to come in any capacity. And I got a call back, which was amazing that they actually took it, because I found like REI is local. They did not take unsolicited resumes. Everything was online. It's this whole new world. And so I came on as Eddie Bauer launched First Ascent, which is our alpine line outdoor active. And we had a team up on Everest. And my job was to get all of the photos and the copy off the BGAN that they sent, the satellite, and then to copyright it, create a title, and then post it on our blog. So it was a 3-month job,
Oh,
because
wow.
they were doing that for 3 months. And at that point, I had integrated myself in with like the walking group, the Tuesday volleyball team, and somebody had a maternity leave. And so I lined myself right up to take over that
That was
maternity leave.
smart.
Because it was a real kind of try before you buy time period at the company. And
Right.
so, and at that point, then I was leading the walking group, and we were playing soccer and doing a boot camp. And so I figured they can't not have me. So they created a full-time position, and I've since had 4 roles within the company up to where I am now.
Wow.
And it's been a journey, from casting store employees to suddenly being on set with 25 people and high paid models and somebody other than me to cook and take out the trash.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. A
Yeah,
little levels a little bit higher there on
it
that
is.
one.
And yet, right, with the time of COVID and now with marketing shifting to being digital first and so many brands, removing the catalog and print element, it's kind of like we're going back to
Right. Yeah, I
small
bet.
crews and taking it and just being more, I think the word of the day is nimble, right?
What are you
Or
guys doing
scrappy.
right now with all this COVID stuff? Are you shooting, or have you put that on hold and just using shoot images from shoots previously, or how are you working that?
Yeah, we were really lucky the first 2.5 months. We had so many assets, kind of in the can, if you will, and a really deep archive of imagery that we could pull from to get us through that time period. And then as we were able to train up and be safe, we were able to reopen our studio, which is in our corporate building, super small, with small distance team, all the
Mhm.
safety and practice. And we started up with stills again specifically. And then as far as on figure goes, very limited. Some on figure, it's easier to do ecom on figure distance than it is to be out on
Oh yeah.
location. And then being super mindful to models and masking up. And we are a company that's been rooted in a sense of community, and groups being inclusive and in the outdoors, and that's just not viable. So it's a lot more single individual or groups from, another individual in the distance. And
Right.
I think, we kind of learn as we go. And we've been lucky to utilize some of those relationships we've had in the past, being able to send something to New York to be safely done for like an elevated ecom photography shoot or whatnot. But it's forced the brand to make some really great decisions, and some of it has created a better outcome for us as a brand. We've been able to try things that maybe we've been pitching for years, but because there were so many discussions and point of views, and now as people have realized that they can't you can't hold on to everything, right? You're not
Yeah.
physically in a building together. There's only so much we can look at Zoom, and you have to scale and decide what is most critical to the business. Is it the emails, the social, the this? And by kind of allowing people more freedom and trust in what they do in their jobs, I think we've been able to try some things and get good results, which is super exciting.
Yeah, that's very cool. Have you guys decided, I guess not decided, but have you guys, as far as the catalog goes, are you still printing out and putting out as many catalogs as you had been, 10 years ago, or are you still, is that become more of just an online thing, or how's that even working?
Yeah, we last year looked at downsizing and are scaling our catalogs. And we have business in Germany and Japan, and those businesses still put out some robust print pieces. And for our brand, we just have a selection of catalogs through the year that, based on metrics and everything, we know the conversion rates are high.
Right.
So it might be a sale brochure or something around the holidays for gifting. And it's become much more pointed. I mean, there was a time when I believe there were like 35 catalogs going out. And granted, that might have been a version with your cover and your 2-3
Yeah.
or some promotional changes, but it never stopped. And I mean, as you know, your lead times for print are almost, they're handcuff you. They're ugly compared to digital. You can shoot it today and put it live this afternoon.
Yeah.
Whereas print, you got to start with that process 3 months in advance, and it's death by committee on who likes which shot in which direction. And I mean, it's crazy. So that part I think is fantastic. Although I still love magazines and I love reading books, and I still love the tactile nature of really good paper selection. So I don't know.
Speaking of that part, that made me think of, I was in New York right before all this happened, and I was visiting some art producers, and I had a book and I had an iPad, and one of them looked at me and was like, you still have a book? And I was like, yeah, I still have a book. I said, but I have the iPad. They were like, you don't even need to bring the book anymore because we're just all looking at iPads. So do you meet with photographers or any of that for you guys? Would you prefer the book? Do you prefer the iPad? Do you care either way? Have you noticed less people bringing in books?
I think, well, I still love when an agent rolls up with the world's heaviest suitcase and all of the tags on it are from every flight that says heavy. I think it depends. Yes, so we still meet with people. We were still meeting with people. I think we're really good at honoring and giving people time and their voice and their opportunity to put themselves forward. If you're going to make the effort to come into the office, because obviously we get a ton of emails, unsolicited, often are not pointed, and have nothing to do with what we do as a business, right?
Do you even read those?
Some of them I do.
I'm sure you get tons and tons of them.
What resonates best with me when I get the emails are if somebody has curated a PDF that is relevant to our business.
Yeah.
And they're saying essentially like, I believe that I understand your point of view. I appreciate your business. I have an outdoor active perspective. I can also shoot lifestyle and understand the importance at the end of the day that you're shooting product, right? So I can do aspiration and product. And those get cut through. And then sometimes you'll be working on a project and you don't know who you want to bring on as a photographer. And that email comes through and you look at it in a different way than you would have if it was.
What makes you open it?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm in Outlook.
Subject line, or is it, because I can imagine you get tons of them every day that say new work or whatever, or please look at me. I don't know how they're going to put it, but I'm assuming that you get so many, you're just like, all right, yeah, new work again. I got it.
Yeah. So I have Outlook, so I get like a pre-read of the first 2 to 3 lines. So obviously if my name's spelled right, that's awesome.
That's probably good. Yeah.
The other tell is when it's your name and then a space and then the comma, because it's an auto-populate.
Oh yeah.
So that's always another one where I think, no. But if somebody's taken the time to put Eddie Bauer in the body of the email or the title, I will read it.
Okay.
Because they've taken the time to personalize it, and even if they just cut and paste it for like Patagonia and North Face, I'll give it some time for sure.
Okay.
And not to ask me to dig. That's the other thing. Don't ask me to I will maybe click through to your website, but if you give me a curated PDF or you drop in 2 or 3 images within the body of the email that directly align, I'll give it more time. But if you want me to go find stuff in your website, it's just I just don't have the time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I hadn't thought about this until you just said it, but I don't know, probably 6 months ago, I remember seeing online some it was a rep, a photographer's rep, said something about don't put images in your email. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me. And it was, like I said, it was a rep. So it wasn't an art producer. It wasn't a creative director. But to me, it seemed like putting the images in gives you a better idea of if that's somebody that maybe is shooting what you want to see, as opposed to just like, here's a link to my website, go check it out. I'd love to shoot for Eddie Bauer, which I mean, who the hell is going to say I don't want to shoot for Eddie Bauer? So I just thought it didn't make any sense to say don't put in pictures in your
Yeah.
email.
It might just be that it gets caught in a firewall.
I guess, yeah, maybe. Hell, I've
But
had it where at one point, just because my daughters used to dance at the Y. They did like the YMCA ballet class, and the director had asked me to shoot some stuff for them because I think their video guy had just gotten up and left and moved someplace. He goes, "Can you do this?" And it's very easy. I was like, "Sure, I'll shoot it for you." So I was trying to email her, and because I had my website on my signature and it was a link to my site, she couldn't get any of my emails. They were all blocked. So I had to, every time I wrote her, I had to make sure there was nothing in there that would look like it was a link to anything. Not even a picture, no links, nothing. I mean, it was a hardcore firewall in that place. I've never seen anything like it before, but yeah. So are you involved in both the print and like TV motion work, or did you specialize in just one or the other?
No, so our team touches every piece of content that comes through.
Okay.
So we've really developed, I mean, we've had a multimedia editor for 11 years, for as long as I started. We started about a month apart and worked really closely for a long time because our expeditions was separate. Our expedition capture and relationships with guides was separate to the standard photo production, which I would say would be more catalog driven.
Right.
And then we've merged it all together. But so we have over 30 athletes and leaders on contract with a team manager that oversees that. So we help facilitate the capture for those for both still and video. Sometimes they're the same person, very rarely though. I mean, what we know and what you know is you sacrifice one for the other. So unless you're getting short bites, boomerangs, loops, or whatever it is for social, if you want to tell a story and do it in an authentic way, you've got to have two people.
Well, which is good because I've also noticed that if they try and do it, it is more difficult. Do you shoot at the exact same time, or do you shoot stills separately than you're shooting the motion work?
For expeditions and trips like that, it's simultaneously.
Okay.
And often maybe you'll have a different angle. And so your DP and shooting for camera work for motion might go up farther on the trail and have people walk through the frame and all of that. Stills is so hard. I mean, because you're right, you got a model who's 2 steps forward, 2 step back. It's so disjointed. So we have in the past then taken and curated like vignetted moments. And those were the days that maybe you had 4 models on set. And so you split your crew and had 2 and 2 and moved them back and forth. But, it never goes well if you're trying to shoot the shoulder. It just, for efficiencies and budget, you always think like, this is the best. This is going to be so great what we get back. And then it comes back and it just never meets the expectations. So I think you have to give it the time and you have to put the money behind it for sure.
What I've noticed on those shoots, if I'm shooting stills and there's video, I'm not as important as the video guys ever.
Really?
For whatever reason, and I don't know what it is. The guys shooting the motion work, the video, they always have priority for whatever reason. I don't know why that is, but I mean, it literally be like, okay, we're shooting this. They shoot it and they go, all right, I know you were supposed to have like 30 minutes to shoot this. You have 10 now. So, get on it and shoot what you can.
Well, I think there's more discussions around now, if you've aligned with a photographer to say, are you also a DP? Can you bring in another shooter? Maybe your first or second also shoots motion and you can oversee it, because we have definitely had that kind of alpha fight on set of because everybody wants to bring in their own deliverables and get the next job, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
That is the name of the game, is what's your next job. So the approach has become more collaborative, and how can we help you both, get what you need on set. And that's also the job of certainly the producers to.
Well, that's nice. Help. I mean, yeah. And for me, I learned it. Well, the first time it happened to me, I said, okay, I'm going to be prepared. So the next time it happened to me, I was already prepared for it. So I'd already kind of scoped out exactly what I wanted, where I wanted it. So when my time got cut in half or a quarter, it didn't really matter to me, because I was like, all right, I've already spent the time you were shooting looking at your angle, other angles, where I want to shoot, how the lights come in, and I was set up and ready to go. So I learned from that first one, be prepared. don't get caught off guard and like, oh hell, well, I thought I was gonna have time to really work on this. But that's good that it's more collaborative now with you guys, and I
Absolutely.
think it makes things a lot better all the way around.
Well, and also we've learned through experiences of what to ask for, what's reasonable, what's not. I mean, any
Yeah.
client is going to ask for we're always going to go for it.
Oh yeah.
And it has to be something on that front end in that pre-production process where you say, here's what I can do for you. Or maybe we could do this and explore this differently, so that you know what the expectations are and what to come home with and what not.
So do you go into it thinking, say, I don't even know, I'm just going to go with, say, shot count just for whatever reason. Do you go into it, say, all right, we're going to say we want 20 shots today, but really we just need 10 to 15. And as long as we get those, we're cool. But we're going to say we need to get 20 and go set out to try and get those 20. Or do you just try and be more realistic from the very beginning and go, okay, we really can only pull off 10 shots today?
I laugh because I've been at all stages of that,
Yeah.
from a style out process where you say, we're going to do 8 to 10 looks today. This is going to be a branding process. We're really going to spend time and we're only going to do one outfit change for the 4 models. But then what is that you have 10 to 12 shots, right? There's a little creep.
Yeah.
And then, we're going to version it. We're going to take that jacket off. We're going to zip it. We're going to add a scarf, maybe a hat. I think we should change the shoes. So then you're suddenly at, we're still telling you got 12, but you've got 18 to 22. And then some late sample is going to come in and we definitely want to get that on set. So if you could maybe just squeeze it in, here's an extra 2 looks, but you can keep the pants the same. So it's a really easy change, right? So I am guilty of that. And I have an amazing team that I work with, who are really great about coming in and just saying, let's have a level conversation about what your expectations are. And let's do this. Let's set the team up. And it's very rare that your team has wrapped, 4 hours before they're supposed to, right? Because light determines what our day is. So maybe take an extra half an hour at lunch, but you're still going to go to sunset. So it just depends. And with COVID, we've created some looks in house and seeded them with photographers and had that trust to send it out with no stylist, and see what we get back. And in that, we might say there's 6 looks for that day.
Yeah.
And 3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. And you just know you're really looking for something to drive your online digital, homepage banner, some key emails, and maybe a window image. And people aren't even in the malls. And so where in the past, the window, it's still, we want to hook people and bring them in, but it's not, that's not driving the business by any means at the moment.
So I'm assuming you have certain photographers, like you just said, that you trust, that you use on a regular, semi-regular basis at least. How often do you guys use a new photographer or a new director? Is that often, or is it just rare?
It's not rare. We definitely have played favorites in the past or known from experience who could handle things. So we have aligned with photographers that maybe we took out for a full-blown shoot, but then we know that they also are really nimble and great at producing their own shoot. And so we tried last year some photographer led, and we'd say, here's our key product. We need it to look cold. We need a cast that's inclusive and diverse. Why don't you pitch it back to us? And we'll pay you a creative fee, right? It's the best of the world for me in a lot of ways.
Well, that's nice of you. Most people are like, just pitch it. Let's see what you got. They're not going to pay you to put all that time.
I'm not saying they're all like that, but it was a different way for us to test it. But we only did that with a photographer that we knew understood what the deliverables were and what they needed to communicate through their photography back. We've tried it with influencers. We sent 4, I guess, EB contributors out last year on a shoot, and we supported it with a producer who had pre-permitted it all. We helped with travel. We got them on the ground, and it was this 3-day endeavor through slot canyons and whatnot. And each of them, I mean, there's a whole different conversation for a different podcast of, them shooting and how do you take influencers out and have them not shoot, or to shoot each other, but they all want the great light.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really interesting exercise. What came back was fantastic, and they
Oh,
gelled,
that's
and
good.
I'm super happy with how it came back. But it was really interesting then, because they arranged their time of who would shoot when, so that you didn't have everybody with cameras, up to their face all the time in every shot, to then look at their body of work. And maybe the individuals that you thought would be the key photographers delivered a different point of view than somebody else who maybe took a more kind of, for lack of a better word, après, or just behind the scenes, or captured those kind of casual moments. And then that was the film that resonated with you.
Yeah.
And as a brand. So I would just say, the reason I'm still with the company 11 years later is it feels so different all the time. The projects are different. We continue to test how we do it. We look at new talent and new photographers. We haven't had a lot of repeats. And in some ways, then you're starting from scratch. It's probably like speed dating. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I think, as a brand, we're open to doing something different and looking different and learning. And that's really exciting.
Well, it's probably keeps you around, keeps you in business.
For sure. The people and kind of the evolution of the brand is definitely what keeps me there.
Yeah, I'll say if you've been there 11 years, they're doing something right to keep you around.
Well, yes, and I guess my core attributes would be that I'm extremely loyal, and honest, and
Are you a Scorpio? That's what my wife says.
I'm a Virgo. I'm very organized.
Okay. Yeah, my wife's a Scorpion. She goes, "We're extremely loyal." So when you're with me, you're with me. But when you're not, I'll cut your throat. She's pretty much right.
Up front. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So out of all the places you've shot, is there one like favorite story, favorite shoot you've been on, location you've been, something that you're just like, this was the greatest or one of the greatest I've done?
Yeah. So I think on any given day that might be a different answer.
Yeah.
But we've been watching a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
And so there's a program right now called Street Food Latin America. And there was a segment on La Paz, Bolivia, which I was there 15 years ago in 2005.
Wow.
And it just triggered this whole memory of these 3 weeks that we went in. And this was one of the shoots where we cast 6 store employees, had the photographer and the art director and myself. And we hired a local production team. And now knowing what a local production team could look like, I think I hired a expedition outfitter.
Yeah.
And then we pigeonholed this idea of trying to do a photo shoot with them. They were amazing. So I'll give you a couple highlights and then a couple reasons why it obviously resonates and sticks with me. And it's not that I produced an amazing shoot. There were a lot of moments that were not so awesome. But when you fly into La Paz, you actually ascend onto the runway.
So you don't come in flat, you go up to get on.
You have to go up to land. So it's
wow.
I mean, I can't give you the elevation straight off, but your lips are blue when you come off of the plane because of a lack of oxygen. So we had to acclimatize in La Paz, which is this gorgeous city. And it was interesting through this Netflix program to see how it's evolved in 15 years and what it looks like. But it's got steep walls on either side. There's now a gondola that takes you up through kind of what I would say would be the boroughs of the area. And it looks very similar with all of the cholitas, which are the indigenous women there that have the bowler hats and the layered skirts on the corner that are selling their goods, or have street carts for food and stuff. So anyway, we team gets in, we all have headaches. I have brought grapeseed oil. We're all burning our toast so that there's charcoal on it to help with digestion. Nobody's having a salad until somebody decides they're going to go rogue and have a tomato and spends the night super sick. And so you have this. So off we set in 2 vehicles, all-terrain vehicles. And what ensues is this amazing experience of kind of being fully immersed and integrated into the into the community and the people, and some working on my Spanish speaking. Definitely, not fluid, can make it work. But in moments that you really need it, my gosh, you can pull it out. And it's amazing how much the nonverbal can do as well,
Oh,
and
yeah,
how you
I'm
can get
sure.
through as a people. But we had just the most incredible interaction with people. But while we were there, we paid to park our vehicles in a secure garage that was locked. It still meant that the gas canisters on the top were siphoned and water was put in. So then we put the gas into the car, and then obviously the car didn't
So wait,
function.
you have gas cans on top of the car. You
Yeah.
paid for a secure parking area. Somebody came in at night, siphoned out all your gas, filled it up with water, and then you put water in your gas tank.
Yes.
Sweet. All
So
right.
one car down, side of the road, hitchhiking on trucks. We went into the Solar de Uyuni, which is the salt flats, and in the middle of it, there's this amazing cactus island. So we spent an overnight there in tents. We ate so much food that was heavily boiled, and it was all like quinoa based. And you thought, what is this amazing squirrely circular grain? And only to have it be like the super bougie food of now.
Yeah, I have
You
a
know,
friend of mine who anytime she's from that kind of region of the world, and she
yeah.
said that every time my daughter plays volleyball, and she's like, anytime that she would get hurt, she goes, "You need to give her more quinoa. You need to feed her quinoa." It's like her solution for everything.
It's the superfood for sure. We had one morning we were shooting. We had two guys on the top of the truck that were unloading bags, and there were 9 of us plus 2 local fixers that were also our expedition tour guides. And somebody walked down the right-hand side street of the car, reached in, took a backpack off the back seat, and just kept going. And none of us saw it. So suddenly, I'm replacing a passport in La Paz,
Oh
for a
wow.
traveler. And because Australia and New Zealand are such a global kind of community of people, melting pot, who have come there to work or to live. I had a Kiwi, I had an Australian, I had myself as an American passport holder. We had a guy that was a Bolivian. So when you're replacing passports, it's not just like a one-stop shop. It was multiple consulates. And bless Canada, they do some good work down there in helping us get passports expedited on behalf of different
Oh my
countries.
God.
And then I also we went through the salt flats. We traversed some amazing landscape. And then the last thing was we had a group of mountaineers with us, and they were going to summit Sahama, which is about 21,000 feet. So our base camp, and it wasn't all of us, our base camp was already up high. And I had said to one of the guys who was training for an Ironman, you're here. I'm sorry your race is coming up, but you are not training here. You need to understand the effects of your body. And so I was asleep, and 2 of the guys came in and they said, "Oh, Jason's in bed, but he's breathing. It's almost like he can't breathe." And so we had to evacuate him out of the base camp. And there's not like you call in a heli. It was
Oh
our
wow.
driver barreling down the mountain with 2 guys in the back seat, kind of beating his chest and yelling at him to keep him lucid. And he had pulmonary edema. And it was the first time as a producer, just as a human, thinking, my God, I'm going to send a coffin home. And even though we talked about it, he just decided he'd go for a short run, and his body did not take well to it. So we were able to bring him back down into La Paz, which at the time was a lower elevation, and get him well. But it was just one of those, you have this beauty and this mystique of this country and these amazing rich experiences, but you realize that anything can go wrong, and small choices, no matter how many amazing steps you take to keep everybody safe, that just life happens. And he did participate in that Ironman, so I am happy for it.
Well, thank God for that.
Oh my God. So I would say today, because you asked, and because
Right.
I just watched my Netflix program, that I have some really incredible memories of that location. But I've been able to travel all over the world for work, and I feel really, really, really fortunate.
Do you have that kind of stuff happen often on these trips?
So that, no, I mean, more often than not, you think the worst is that you have a bit of a tiff between the crew, and then you just get
Right.
some people out and you have drinks and everybody comes good, and it's a lack of sleep and long days that get people. But I haven't had too many situations where it's gone totally crazy.
Well, that's
Um,
good.
but I'm sure if I were to go deep into the recesses of my mind, I could dig out some other stories that I probably have buried Or because, I'd like to get another job one day if I
Well,
needed to, that
yeah,
I'm probably not going to divulge them
yeah.
today.
That's probably smart.
I definitely know what not to do.
Yeah, I bet. It sounds like it. You learned nothing else just from that one. How, what about extremes? Do you guys, have you been in like extreme heat, extreme cold, that kind of thing? Or is it just not, it's been bad, but not horrible?
Yeah, no, the team has definitely put themselves in some different positions. And as the years have gone on, I traveled a lot when my kids were really young
Yeah.
and they couldn't tell time. So that was fine, right?
Right.
Like, I'll see you in 3 weeks and they couldn't
I had
quantify it.
no
Where
idea.
now
Yeah.
they're now that are at an age where they're like, 2 nights? You're going to be gone for 2 nights? So we hired an amazing producer years ago, and my husband, every time he sees her, is like, you are just the best. Thank you so much. What you've done for our family is just incredible. But she got to go to Iceland 2 or 3 times last year, or 2 years ago, and Finland. So I am extremely appreciative, but I miss it. I
I'll
do
also
miss
say,
that
yeah, that you
travel,
missed out.
for
I haven't
sure.
been to Iceland, but God, everybody knows been there. So it's just
Yeah.
amazing. And it's on my list of places to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Iceland had extreme winds to the point where the RV actually rubbed into another car, even they were multiple feet apart. That the winds were
Oh, yeah.
that things would navigate. Pictures coming back from Banff, Canada, in January, of just this ultimate frosty face. I was up at the top of Jackson Hole. I think it was -8, but the windshield, coming through, and I remember just layering jackets on people and then
Yeah.
pulling them really quick so that we could
Oh,
shoot
yeah.
it, and then the back on. All the tricks of the therapeutic back warmers, next to skin, and how many feet and
Do you
hand
find
warmers.
that the models are cold every time except while they're shooting? Because it seems to me like they will, when I'm shooting, if it's really cold, they're freezing. But as soon as you start shooting, they start doing it. They forget that they're cold.
I think
The
I
minute
think
you say,
they're
all right, got it, they're like, oh my God. And they're
yeah,
freezing again.
you definitely get a sense sometimes of where some of them are from. Like a
Yeah.
Midwesterner, it's like, this is nothing. I go ice fishing, or
Right.
what the upbringing might be. And we've all had that model on set where if you leave a bike unaccompanied or unwatched, suddenly you'll be like, where is that? And the bike's gone and the model's gone, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, how do you introduce some sort of rock climbing or something to get all that energy of that model out for the day? Or so we've had that. I mean, the extreme heat, I do better in cold than I do in heat, which
Yeah.
is the exact opposite of my husband. So we've had some, days that are over 100, and that stuff is just, it's more about hydration, rest,
Oh, yeah.
shelter, all of that. So you
And
have
you
your
know,
bag
those
of
little
tricks.
towels that my daughter uses for volleyball. You know, the ones I'm talking about, where you get them wet and they keep you cold and cool.
Yep.
Yeah, those things are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they work really well.
But as the photographer, you're front line. I
Yeah.
can go back and I can check
Oh,
on
yeah.
people in the motorhome. I can go answer some emails, but when you're on set, you are on set, and there's not a lot of, you don't get a break there.
No, that's true. The good thing, I guess, about the cold for me is I can still put on jackets and I can put on, whatever and stay
Yeah.
warmer. Not as warm as you in the RV, but, warmer. I had to shoot in Alaska one time and I was taking a red eye back. And the guy taking me to the airport came out and was sitting in the truck. And this dude is 15 below zero at the time. This guy is literally in a t-shirt
Oh, wow.
and jeans, just sitting there talking to me. And it was a husband wife team. And so he's just sitting in there talking to me, waiting, for whatever. I am in like a shirt, a long sleeve shirt, a sweatshirt or something over top of that, a leather jacket over that, a scarf. And I'm still sitting there just like, oh my God, it's freezing. And his wife comes out and she goes, what the hell are you doing? Get back in the house. He goes, what? I'm fine. And it was 15 below zero. And this dude was just like, it's just another day. So that was amazing to me. I'm like, I don't know how the hell you do that, but that was pretty unbelievable. To, I guess if it got hot, he'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, we always, as an outdoor outfitter, travel with extra boxes of jackets and shoes. And you always get the prop assistant that's coming in from LA who has never owned a heavy
Yeah.
jacket and is almost to the level of like stuffing newspaper between their body and another jacket to keep warm. I mean, you see it all. And that is the brilliance and what is so fun of it. And I don't get that sitting in an office or a cubicle in a building, that's for sure.
Do you get to go on many trips anymore?
My travel is much more restricted. It's not even restricted. It's just kind of time-based in that we have such a great team that it would really be, if I were to go, it would be more of a boondoggle, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Not because I physically need to be there. So I tend to take smaller projects closer to home. We launched EB Kids last year, and I went out and did the kids shoots just because, I don't know, this is a bad excuse, because I have kids. And so,
Right.
I'm nimble, able to work in that environment very easily. And so, no, I don't travel as much, but in doing so, I've been working on doing more of my own personal travel. So as long as I'm traveling
Right.
in some capacity in my life, then I'm not as worried about it, because it's also, even though I still have to convince my husband sometimes, it's not a vacation. I mean, the scout's nice, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Scout's the best part.
Yeah. And then after that, you're like, day 4, saltines look pretty good. And I was in the Hood River last year at a hotel down by the river. That sounds really, at a hotel down by the river. And there was a McDonald's. I haven't been to McDonald's, I don't know, in 20 years. And it was 11:30 at night and I was editing something and I thought, man, I just want some soft serve.
Yeah.
So in my PJs, I walk across the street.
Was the ice cream machine actually working?
At this facility, it was. Is it notorious for?
My daughters, we don't eat McDonald's ever, except for literally like the soft serve or maybe the parfait or whatever. But so my daughter's boyfriend loves McDonald's. He eats McDonald's all the time. So if they do go and my daughters go, they just go and get like a hot fudge sundae or a, what the hell you call that thing with all the stuff in it, the smoothie or whatever. I don't know what it's called. McFlurry, that's what it is. So they get a McFlurry. But they've gotten to the point now where when they drive up to the menu to order, they go, "Is the ice cream machine working?"
Oh wow!
Because so many times they've gone up there and said, "Hey, I want an Oreo McFlurry." And they go, "Yeah, ice cream machine's not working." It was like over probably 3/4 of the time, it seems like. So now their first question is the ice cream machine working? And it's still half the time or more they say it's not working. And the last time it was working, I think my daughter said, I want Oreo McFlurry. Oh, we don't have any Oreos. Oh, well, then I want this. Yeah, we don't have that either. So it was literally just ice cream at that point.
Well, I was extremely lucky on my one-off.
That's good. Yeah. You did really well.
It was my distanced comfort food that I needed in that moment.
I think it's nice to see those when you're traveling, because I know, like, I remember being I guess I was in England somewhere, and I remember seeing a Pizza Hut, and I was just like, oh, thank God, because English food is not very good. At least what I had was not very good. So I just saw a Pizza Hut. I was like, oh, thank you, God, there's a Pizza Hut here.
There's that familiarity for sure.
Yeah. What do you do when you're not working? So obviously you travel. Is that your main thing, or are there other things do you travel a lot during the year?
We have been extremely fortunate. So I don't know if you've ever, give my plug for Scott's Cheap Flights. I don't know if you were ever on their emails. They have a free service. And so they do, so throughout the year, it's almost like I became an armchair traveler. Obviously they're not prolific with their emails like they once were, given the state of the world. But, it might be, it comes in and it's a flight from LA to Bogota for $295 or something, some sort of lost leader.
You have to book it quick, where you have like maybe an hour or two to book it.
Yes. You don't have much time. You just, you got to think, you can't think about it. You just got to go.
I have heard of them.
So I went, last year I went with my mom for 2 of our bigger birthdays, and we went to Mexico for 10 days. I had never been to Mexico.
Really?
No, which was why I've been all over the world, but I'd never been to Mexico. But it was also important to me to go to Mexico City and Oaxaca and to have much more of a cultural.
Was it because Mexico's just too close? Is that why you didn't go?
No, I'm just not like a beach holiday kind of person.
Yeah,
I gravitate towards the mountains, and same with our family. And we aren't that family that had like the timeshare or that we went back to the same spot every year. We were based much more in river rafting and fly fishing, and my mom grew up on the East Coast, so we went to Delaware to Rehoboth Beach every year.
Okay.
So that kind of it was a bit different. So we've had some great trips. We went to Europe with our girls last year, and we got round trip tickets for under $400 in and out of Paris. And so
what time of the year did you go for that?
spring break, like it was March or
Seriously?
April. Yeah. So you just have to wait and when it comes through. But I think we booked it in September this year. Again, we had flights under $400 return from Seattle, and on a reputable airline, on
Right.
British Airways, so we did
How
get our
long
money
is that
back.
flight from Seattle to Paris?
I want to say, well, we had to go through Heathrow, but I don't know, 7 hours, 8 hours. It's not
Okay.
much.
Yeah, that's
I
not
mean,
bad.
once you're I'll answer you this way. It's 2 meals and 2.5 movies
Okay. That's
and a
not
couple
bad.
cocktails.
Yes, of course.
In my mind, if you're on a plane for more than 3 hours, it doesn't matter how many hours. And we end up going back to Australia to visit family almost every year.
I don't know. When you hit that
And
9, 10 hour mark, it starts to go a little
yeah,
rough.
so we have done some long haul trips for sure. We've done that, but we also fly through Vancouver, or we go through San Francisco or LA, or we go through Honolulu. I mean, we are notorious for like patching together the cheapest flights in the world.
Well, that's all right.
So
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it was fun. And then this year I was supposed to go with my mom again. We were going to go to Kenya in September, and we got those flights from Seattle to Nairobi for $600.
Okay. Is this all this from Scott's cheap flights?
Yes,
Okay. I'm going to have to do that because,
not a stockholder, and I just think it was, and I think more than anything, to be during the middle of your workday and to get that email come through and to know that you could go to
yeah.
all these amazing places in the world if you had that much time off and flexibility, that's super fun. It
And I think
allows you to dream.
being able to go to Africa for $600 round trip makes that long ass flight a lot more doable, I think, because I want to go. I definitely want to go. I want to do the photo safari thing. I shot a couple of years ago. I shot the CEO of Lowe's, and he was telling me about they had just come from that was what they did the summer before. They did this African photo safari, and he had rented like a 300 millimeter lens and all this stuff. And they stayed in these really cool tents with Wi-Fi. He said, the way you knew it was really cool, he said, my teenage sons did not get on social media the entire time until they got back at night to their tents and had Wi-Fi and were uploading the pictures that they had shot on their phone from the day because they thought it was so cool. But the whole day they weren't looking at their phones. They weren't trying to do anything else. So that's another one of my my list of places that I want to go is do that.
Well, it's fun to dream. I think that's the only challenge that I had with Scott's. That was Christmas night this year. Was
Yeah.
it came through while we had dinner, and then I had to make that call because the dates just start going when you
Oh
look at the
yeah.
calendar. But then it was, what kind of a trip are we going to take? Because you see all these amazing tent safaris, and then when you start going into it, you're like, that's an $8,000 trip, or
Oh
that's a
yeah.
10,000, or how am I going to do this? Or I love to support women and supporting microeconomies. And so what kind of a trip are we going to take? A trip that's takes us into homes and we can support small businesses. How do you want to experience that country, and what do you want to take away from it? And suddenly it's like, and you got to figure out what those trip dates are and then try to match up your
Oh
flights,
yeah.
as opposed, because the last thing you want to do is book your flights and then find out like the world's most perfect trip leaves 2 days before you get there. So what I will say is we had, our flights were canceled by Lufthansa, and so we're lucky because at some point the money is going to come in my account. They said it still hasn't
Yeah.
been there, but
How long has that been?
since we canceled it,
Yeah.
I think we're going on 3 weeks that money is not in my credit card, but they've
Okay.
refunded it. I mean, I also give the airlines credit that they're trying to stay
Yeah.
afloat at some level.
I think it took, my daughter was supposed to go to Italy she was going to do a study abroad thing starting in May, and she was going to Italy, and they canceled all that. The flights were canceled, and it took them about 4 weeks or so for her money to get stuck back into her account.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll give them another week or so. Yeah. Get some money back.
I'd rather have taken the trip, but
Yeah, no, yeah,
at a
she's
different
her
time.
too. She was
Yeah.
like, because actually it was her and her boyfriend were going, and they had met some other guy and girl, and they had gotten this cool place together, and they were going to get it, and then they were staying not very far from like the center of Rome, and so they were going to, and then they had already planned trips to go all these other places, and then it all just got canned.
Yeah.
So, and then he's talking about doing an internship. Her boyfriend's talking about doing an internship next summer. So she was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to go without him then. And so who knows? Maybe he won't do the internship. They may not even be together next summer. I have not a
That's
clue.
true.
Yeah.
Crazy times.
Not my mic over. So what's the favorite part of your job?
Oh, I think the people. I think you could say that it's equally the most challenging part of my job, in the sense that I just making new friends and cultivating friendships is kind of the basis of who I am as a person. Um, and so being able to do that with a team of people in an office and to work cross-functionally and to kind of to find a common goal that we can all work towards um, is what I love. And I think I listened to a speaker years ago, and he said the best meetings are the ones where people don't agree. They're the hardest meetings, but what you
Yeah.
get out of them is the best, right? Because going to a meeting and everybody being like, I love that idea, I love that idea, you're not growing and you're not learning something new and you're not challenging one another. And so getting a group of people in the room who aren't going to agree, gets a better product, but it's how you work with them to get to that spot, right? So it's not hostile
Yeah.
and not everybody's coming in with their own agenda. So I would say best part is the people. But sometimes that is also the most challenging.
Yeah. I can
You
see
got a
that.
lot of personalities,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like kids. Your toolbox for one kid does not work for the other kid.
That's
So
just amazing. And how you have two kids, the exact same parents, and they're just completely different children.
yes,
Yeah,
yep,
mine are like that. I have one that is hardcore. She will start studying like a week ahead of time for an exam that's coming up. My other one, the day before, maybe she'll start studying.
yep.
Yeah, the one's really into school, and one she's like, I hate school. I don't even want to be here. I think she got that from me. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't want to go to college. I went because my dad was like, "What the hell are you going to do?"
Yeah,
I want to work for you. I was like, no, you're not. So what you going to do? And I wanted to shoot. I just didn't at the time. I just didn't know how to make money doing
yep.
it. So I went to school, got a degree, and came out, and then realized I could make money shooting. It was like, I'm not doing I had like crappy part-time jobs anyway. So I went
When
off.
you've got that foundation. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the most important thing
God, I've
for
been
sure.
shooting since I was seventh grade.
Oh wow,
Like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So I've been shooting since I was like 12 years old.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, and you see, I mean, your lens and how you see the world. I think that's the most extraordinary part of working with different photographers is we can all look at the same thing, but it's how it's captured is so different,
Yeah.
um, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing because I've seen stuff where I've shot it and then I see somebody else shot it. And I think also, I remember years ago, I met this photographer at this convention and she came up to me and I'd seen her work and I thought she was really good. And I was just getting started and I was like, God, I wish I could shoot, more like she does. It's really cool. She came up to me and she was like, my daughter saw your work. And she says, Mom, why can't you shoot more like him? And I thought that was, I'll never forget it because for me, it was like, oh, wow, this chick who I wish I could shoot like, her daughter's like, why can't you shoot like him? And I think it was just a kid's perspective at the time, but still,
Yeah.
it's to see that everybody sees things totally different. You could shoot, I can walk outside and shoot that tree and shoot it completely different than you're going to shoot it or somebody else is going to shoot it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I enjoy
Well,
it.
how you communicate to people as a client or a person what you want and how
Yes.
it's interpreted in so many different ways and
Yeah.
figuring and navigating that out.
Well, that's what I like when I have clients where they say, they give me a little bit of leeway. Like say we're working together and this is what we want shot. or the art director, whoever's like, this is what we want shot. We want it shot this way. And I'll go, well, what about if we shoot maybe this angle instead of that angle? And then it's nice for them. I very rarely, occasionally people go, oh yeah, that works. Let's do that. But it's nice to have them go, we can do that. Well, let's shoot this first and then shoot over there. The annoying ones, the one that no, just shoot this. And you're all right, I'll do it because that's what you're paying me to do. I'm not going to sit there and argue with you all day long. I'll tell you my reasons why I think that angle might be a little bit better and we should try it. But I'm not going to argue with you. But it's nice to have those people who will let you play a little bit when you have that kind of time and shoot that extra angle or change it up a little bit, change the lighting a little bit or whatever it is. All right. So last question. I think, what are we doing? We're running on over an hour. Okay. So what is the strangest thing that has happened to you since you've started, I guess so let's say from Kathmandu up until now, other than the whole La Paz fiasco?
Oh, man, you had to leave it to the last one. I was doing so well.
Yeah.
Let's see, thinking through all of these things. What is the strangest thing? Well, my worst call in judgment was when I was working for Kathmandu in New Zealand, and we decided let's do a shoot in America. And I was like, oh, I got this. And so we went to California. And it's not necessarily strange. Later, of course, I'm going to think about this and be like, oh, that would have been such a better answer. But I reached out to my uncle who had a home in Squaw Valley. And I was like, can we sleep? This is how cheap I was. And still might be this thrifty still. Can I put a crew of 9 up at your house?
Wow.
And that, again, not strange, just a poor choice in judgment because we weren't even paying. They were still receiving their wage in whatever job that they did for the stores, but we weren't paying them to be models, which of course now I recognize, from use of likeness and people's worth and all that stuff, that you might approach it slightly different. But I was young and very small budget. I mean, what we spent in 3 weeks is maybe what we spend in a half a day to a day on some of those really big shoots. Right. So I was cooking all the food. So I just
Are you a good cook?
Well, when there's nothing else to eat, I am a fantastic cook. I'm really good at grabbing whatever's left in the fridge and creating something.
Well, that's good.
I would not describe myself as a good cook. So, we were all in our 20s. And so, I overhear something in the middle of the night and I come in and there's a model who's vacuuming one of the floors and just not a lot of clothes. And then the hot tub was utilized with some whipped cream. And then that meant that we had to let all the water out of the hot tub.
The model.
I didn't really want to get into it though.
The model vacuuming the floor naked in the house.
Well, what we could
was there a photo shoot going on, or was it just like I like to vacuum the floor naked?
No, this was like a bonus room that had a whole bunch of people sleeping on a floor, and there was probably too much alcohol consumed and not a lot of great choices. And I would say that maybe I was a heavy sleeper, so that I wasn't able to maybe interact a little bit faster. But I guess that would be the strangest thing was, and the thing that I wouldn't do again, which is rent or let a house or a car or a boat or anything from somebody that I know. So, and my uncle was very good spirited, and he popped by as the carpet cleaner was coming to clean up the carpet in another part of the house where somebody had obviously drank too much. So, I run a very different shop these days, but I certainly.
Well, you have to learn.
Oh my God. And it was in the best of intentions. And this is the thing that gets me, right? So we had to drain the hot tub, get the carpets cleaned. And my gift to my uncle as a thank you was the trilogy of Lord of the Rings that I got at Costco for like $100 at the time. And I now recognize that I should really follow that up with like a long holiday in the Bahamas or something like that. Food is strange, right? Like we've eaten guinea pig and all that kind of stuff. But
you ate guinea pig?
In South America, in Peru, we had guinea pig. It still has still got the teeth, it's still got the, the claws.
Okay.
So,
Did you have to convince yourself to eat that, or were you just like, what the hell, I'll try it?
when in Rome, or
Yeah.
when in Cusco, we went for it. And I always like to try whatever's local and happening as well. I'm open to that. But yeah. So I think ultimately the strangest thing I ever did was rent a house or borrow a house from a family member for a shoot. Um, and my best learning experience of why one does not do that.
Well, like I said, you gotta learn, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And
Yeah.
it helps because I think if somebody, it's probably like being, like your kids, you can tell them all day long, don't do this.
Right.
But until you do it and you learn that this is not a smart thing to do, it just won't sink in until it actually happens to you.
Well, and you learn to listen to your internal monologue as well. That's saying like, maybe this isn't the best judgment call.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't do this. And I think it all started when we were supposed to sleep in a campsite, and then it snowed in May around Tahoe, and then that was kind of like, well, we'll just borrow your house. It'll be great. And what I didn't realize is we would unleash the terror of the southern hemisphere on Tahoe.
God.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have anything that good. I have a producer who got really drunk at dinner one night. I told her, don't go hang out with the art director because I could tell it was going in that direction. And the next morning we're leaving and she goes, wait, where are my flip flops? I think I left them in the art director's room. I was like, son of a bitch, what'd I tell you? But
yeah, I give it a little bit of the na when all that stuff comes up.
Yeah.
And yes, we could have a whole different call about some unusual experience with crew members, for sure.
Yeah.
But we, for years ago, decided that we only really wanted to work with nice people.
Yeah.
And that the whole diva thing was a generational, you got to get along. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I agree. I think that's like what I was talking about with somebody else. It's like you can't be that diva, that asshole anymore that maybe you could get by with before. I just don't think you can. I had two assistants one time, and one of them was a friend of mine. Well, they were both friends of mine. One I'd worked with a lot. He was my first assistant. And another guy, we were going down to shoot in Miami and then the Keys. It was like a 5-day shoot. And he was a photographer. He didn't have anything to do. I was like, dude, you want to come be my second assistant on this shoot? He's like, sure. Well, he evidently didn't really understand that he was supposed to come and assist really as much as he just thought he was going to go hang out in Miami and the Keys. So one night at dinner, my lead assistant, and they're sitting across from each other at the table, and my lead assistant said something about, man, you're here to work. You're not here to screw off. And he's like, no, I'm just here to hang out with Mark. He's like, no, you're not. You're here to work. And so the guy who just came along, he took his potatoes and flipped them at my friend. My friend grabbed his fork, stood up, put it right at the dude. Is like, you do that shit again, and this is going in your throat. From that point forward, the second assistant did exactly what he was told to do. He didn't mess around at all anymore. And I just sat there and watched it and just thought it was amazing. But luckily I didn't have any more issues after that. And I learned, and that was a learning situation. I learned, don't just take a friend and turn them into a second assistant, because they're going to think they came on vacation. That's the same trip my wife came on with me because she thought it was going to be cool. And after that trip, she goes, I'm never traveling with you again.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, she goes, I'm not getting up at sunrise, going to bed at, midnight and being exhausted all day long and having to go have dinner and all that stuff. So I think last time I went to the Keys, I was like, hey, you want to come? We can build in like a day or two. She goes, no, not happening. No.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the best things was when I worked for Kathmandu in New Zealand was that I could travel on the back end of it. And we had a policy that you could, if you were flying so many kilometers, that you could fly business, or you could take $500 and go coach. So we used to then take our holiday and our days in lieu, right? Because you work like every weekend plus 20-hour days or whatever it is. We would then piggyback a trip. And so when I went to Morocco, I went to Egypt by myself on the way home, and my $500 went really far.
Yeah.
when I went to Bolivia, I then went to Peru and hiked the Inca Trail. So I think that part I miss too, because now in a more of a corporate and setting, like Eddie Bauer, asking for a week on the back end probably isn't going to go over so well. Plus, you're coming back to bring all the merch, and it's your job to bring the hard drives. So, with age comes responsibility.
Tough, isn't it?
Super overrated.
My 20-year-old at dinner the other night, she goes, "You remember when we were little and we used to go out in the front yard and we'd play like we had a job and that we were having to, do things and get up and go to work?" She goes, "I don't know why I did that. That was not smart." I was like, "I try to tell you, do not try and grow up. You need to stay young as long as you can."
I know, this adulting thing. No. Why were we so quick to get to it? I don't know.
I don't either. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. We're hitting like 35, like hour 20, something like that. So everybody watching, listening, hey, if you guys like this, like it, thumbs up it, subscribe to it, comment on it, whatever else you're supposed to do on these podcast kind of things, do that. And we'll see you guys soon.